I'm doing only one waistband because I want to make sure that it fits well, so I will do one and then baste it and do the fitting. So I only sew one set of waistbands at the side seams. Then the waistband. What I do is I press the seam allowances. Now I remember that I still am getting prepared for the fitting, so for the seam allowance I just press it open in the meantime, and I will not be trimming it just yet. Now you can see that here I got uneven edge that will be trimmed further down the track. Now that I've done my fitting, I can continue with sewing waistband. What I'll be doing is sewing the center waistband with the side waistbands at this seams with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, then pressing the seam open. Well, first I would like to trim the corners, press it open, and do the same thing with the other one, with the other waistband. After this, I'll be sewing the waistbands together, right sides in, like so, along this line, 1/2 inch or 1.2 centimeters away from the top edge. Then you press them, like so. After this, trim corners like this to reduce bulk at your seams. Then open the seams and press. After this, place your waistbands right sides together. Like so. Match your side seams exactly and sew waistbands together at the top edge. After this, press your seam allowances together. This is the top edge of your waistband. And then trim your seam allowances to 1/2. After this, you can open your seam allowances and press the waistband like so. To get nice sharp edge. After you pressed your waistband seam allowance open, you fold the waistband in 1/2. Make sure your seam allowance is nice, your seam is nice and crisp, and you press. After this, I'll have to even out our edges at the bottom, making sure that nothing sticks out. And finally, you have to decide which side is going to be your inside. For example, I want this to be inside. So it'll work like this. That means that inner edge of your waistband will have to be folded under and pressed at about 1 centimeter. To make pressing the inner edge of the waistband easier, I sewn quick seam with wide stitch, and I'm going to use it as a guide, make sure that it's actually all of it is hidden on the inside. So I press the waistband inner edge to the inside. And now the waistband is ready to be sewn on. What I'm going to do next is sewing on the waistband. I'll start with the longer part. Place my waistband right side together with the pant, of course with the seam allowance sticking out on the side, and sew along the edge with my normal seam allowance, making sure that the side seams match exactly at the side seams. That's not the side seam. That the side seams match exactly at the side seams of the pants, and the middle of the waistband fits with the back center back seam. The waistband is attached. You will notice that on the overlap side there is an excess of the waistband. Between this line and here there's 3 centimeters. What you'll have to do is just sew it as usual, trim it to width over seam allowance, and then sew as usual. So what you will have to do next is close this ends and sew the waistband in to cover the seam allowances. And so here it is, the short end. I fold it over just like this and sew it and that's what you will get. The other side, okay. This end can be trimmed. You can go press it in place. Okay, time to work these ends. Press it down first. Then I'll press it towards back of the waistband. Make a nice short sharp edge and just make sure that my corner is nice and sharp. So now next step will be sewing the waistband on. It'll have to be sewn along this edge and all around. As you can see, I have basted the waistband on to make sure it doesn't shift while I'm sewing it on, and I'm using edge stitching for it to sew it on. The waistband has been sewn on. The next thing I'm going to do is top stitch the waistband. The top stitching is starting at the second line of the pocket top stitching and about 2 centimeters away from the top edge of the waistband. Stopping at your mark, turning on the needle and do another row of stitching 5 millimeters away from your previous row. With top stitching done, you'll need to sew a couple of bar tacks along this, joining these two lines, covering this short little seam. The bar tack along here, holding the pocket, and along this seam as well. And the same thing with the opposite side. The bar tack along this line and along here too. Now that you have your bar tack sewn, you can mark and sew your buttonhole.